It's nice to be back in ordinary time, you know? For one thing, it opens up the possibilities for our point of focus for the day. During the Christmas season, for instance, you really do have to spend every Sunday talking about very specific topics, birth of Jesus, the Magi, etc. So, if only for the sake of variety, let's stick to the first reading for a change. It's from Isaiah. I know we heard a lot from him during the season of Advent, but it's later in the book. And what God is saying to Isaiah, he's saying to all of us indirectly. Okay, to summarize, the Lord said to me, "You are my servant. It is too little for you to be my servant, to raise up and restore the survivors of Israel. I will make you a light to the nations, that my salvation may reach to the ends of the earth." That is us. All of us are servants of God, and according to this reading, we basically have two jobs. One, restore our people and recover what was lost. And two, be Christ to absolutely anyone that we can. In my opinion, the first job is harder, restoring what was lost. That's harder because sometimes you can't go back to the way it was. Sometimes you have to cut your losses and start from scratch. Because there can be so much history to overcome, and that just doesn't happen easily. I want to share with you a little bit of wisdom by way of my friend Elizabeth. Elizabeth is a Unitarian, so she's pretty far from our understanding of faith as Catholics, but she's not as far as other people. She's the sweetest person ever. She holds no grudges against anyone or anything. She has never had a bad experience with the Catholic Church. She is who she is. Well, she was telling me that her biggest frustration with her church is that there are a number of people there that spend an inordinate amount of time complaining about Catholics. Some of them are ex-Catholics. Some of them have had Catholic run-ins, whatever that means, you name it. But basically, a lot of their talks boil down to, I don't really know what I believe, but it'll all be okay as long as I'm not Catholic. And Elizabeth was telling me that she, understandably, feels very uncomfortable when those conversations break out. She feels uncomfortable in those situations because, frankly, she has not had that experience. She is not bleeding from those specific spiritual wounds. Now, in spite of our differences, I could talk to people like Elizabeth all day and all night with glee and joy. Those other people in her church, however, and I'm not saying all Unitarians are like that, just the ones that frustrate her, for those people in her church, there's not really all that much I could do. You know, there's just too much pain, too much animosity, too much history for me to recover what was lost, at least in an immediate sense of the word. I really believe that the best thing to do is to leave them alone, pray for them, of course, be a good person around them, and hope that eventually their anger subsides. Restoring what was lost is difficult because some things need to run their course. Now, bringing salvation to the ends of the earth, being Christ to absolutely anyone you can, that you can do, absolutely. And as I'm sure most of you know, it's not so much about geography these days. Okay? You don't need to go to an undiscovered jungle to be a missionary. Okay? The ends of the earth aren't so much about location these days as culture. Okay? There are plenty of people all around you who couldn't be farther from Christ. And for the most part, it's not their fault. For the most part, it is not their fault. I know it's easy to assign blame. I know it's easy to judge. I know it's easy to feel resentful. I know that. But there are so many factors at play. You know, even those people that seem to have souls made out of vinegar, you know they didn't start out that way. You know it. Salvation can be brought to them. Something new and good can begin with them. I have one member of the family. She's the wife of my older cousin. And they're both doctors. And when we met her well over a decade ago, she had some nominal faith. You know, it's not starting over from scratch, absolutely. She had some nominal faith, but it was cool and passive. Faith was not a big deal for her. That's not how she feels today. Because she works in palliative care. That means that she's working with people at the very end of their lives. And it's her job to make those final days as painless and as dignified as humanly possible. And when you work a job like that for as long as she has, you're going to see some stuff. Okay? She saw bravery in the face of death. She saw joy and contentment on the faces of people who knew that they would literally be in pain for the rest of their lives. She saw people refuse to die until that last family member got off the plane, got to the hospital, and said their goodbyes. She saw a lot. I am certainly not doing her story justice, and I'm sorry for that. But the point is so straightforward that not even I could screw it up. The nature of salvation dawned upon her. And that revelation did not come from a big booming voice in the sky like at the baptism of Jesus. We didn't specifically hear that in our gospel reading today, but it's the same story. This revelation did not come from the Bible or any other book. It certainly didn't come from an internet discussion. It came from people. Real people. Sick people. People weak and vulnerable. People who may very well have believed that there was absolutely no reason for them to still be alive. And if that's the case, they were wrong. Because all of them collectively inspired her, little by little, to a place closer to Christ. And God bless him for it. You can do it. You might be doing it right now. You can be a light to the nations. God knows it's not easy or obvious. God knows that when we lose someone to the faith, it hurts like nothing else. But in spite of all of that, Christ is the light of the world, lumen gentium. And you can do it. You can bring that light to the world. Just be good, be unafraid, and be yourself.